All right, so I'm going to share with you my screen, and so I've created a good old presentation because that's just good. But I want to talk about myself first because we are meeting first time, and I want to candidly really talk about where all of this is coming from. So I am somebody, I think I've always been passionate about transformation. And I got very mesmerized as a child when I saw people are going from a bad situation to a great situation by mere self-belief and belief in their mind and belief in themselves. So during my childhood, 2005 to 2010, I made some massive changes. I lost a lot of weight. I was bullied a lot in my life. That gave me anxiety issues. And I had a lot of things to work on, but this was where the seed of all of this got started. So I lost a lot of weight. Academically, I became really sound. I did engineering. I did post-engineering. I became very focused in life, and I started to achieve a lot of things. However, in 2017 is when things took a turn. I think I was pointed by the universe or life, you can say. I was pointed to a different direction. And this desire in me to see people transform and to be extremely excited about our ability as human beings to transform, it started to peak back in. What happened in 2017 was that my dad, he went through a life-changing experience. So he got diagnosed with cancer in 2018. And without going into too much detail, because it can get really sad, but at that time, I really saw somebody go from 10 to 0 right in front of my eyes. And it was, so obviously emotionally, it's quite challenging. I think it's one of the most challenging things anybody goes through during a lifespan, to see a close one critically ill. But at that time, I got very determined to pick him up. I was like, I'm not going to let him just like give up, and I'm going to pick him up. And now he is, he's happy and kicking back. He's good. He's healthy now. He survived, and he's doing great. But what I really wanted to highlight over here was that was when, other than myself, because I'd seen myself transform, I saw somebody close to me transform. Sorry. So I saw somebody close to me transform, and I saw how much of the mind played a role in this. Nothing is more challenging when you go and see yourself in the mirror and you're changing in front of your eyes because of some difficult medications that are going in your body. And so that is also when I got introduced to transcendental meditation. So a lot of you, especially Travis, I remember you mentioned that you were an athlete and, you got out of touch with transcendental meditation. You want to get back in. That was the time when I got introduced to it myself in 2017. And I would teach my dad how to do it. Initially, it was just really casual. I would just tell him, let's just sit down and, let's just go through a breathing exercise. Let's go to the deeper level of the mind. I wasn't a pro or anything at that time. I myself was learning, but I just knew that spiritually and mentally, it was a good place for him to be in throughout the day. Otherwise, he would just be frantic and very anxious and sad. So when I started to do it, it started to work. So throughout the day, he would be looking for that 15 minutes, and he's like, okay, can we do that meditation? And I was like, yeah, sure. So we started to do it, and that slowly developed my interest into understanding, what am I doing really? Why is meditation working? Why it's such a simple technique, but why is it working? Why is it calming him down? And that's when I went full thrust into learning about the transcendental meditation techniques, which we'll be talking about today. Okay, so this is a very interactive session, and I would encourage you all to interact as much. I'll be asking questions, so it'll just make it really fun, and it'll make it quite effective. So let's just start with our desires. We all have certain goals, right? We all have things that we want to achieve. So I want to ask you, do you have a goal that you know you want to achieve? It's very clear in your mind, I want to do this, but you haven't been able to achieve it. You haven't been able to successfully attain it. I'm just going to stop sharing till I have that question. Who would like to go first? Jake, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so honestly, I think it's more about for me that I started setting more goals. And I don't know that I'm necessarily sitting here saying I haven't achieved all of them yet, but I think the biggest thing for me is that goals have become more important, where they
Mm-hmm.
weren't really part of my whole business plan before. It was just, hey, like whatever happens today and just move forward and continue to grow the business. But now I think I'm like, okay, I have 1, 3, 5, and 10-year goals that I didn't used to have. So I don't know that it's as much I haven't achieved them because I've been struggling with them. It's just all of a sudden now I actually have them where I haven't for many years.
Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. Pam, would you like to share if you have any goals where you have been in a place where you haven't been able to really achieve them, like a ping pong effect?
Right. So my goal is personal. It's personal, but I think it's the lack of completing this personal goal is holding me back professionally, and achieving some of my professional goals. So that's, I mean, do you want me to tell you exactly what it is, or just that it exists?
I would love to know, why do you think that is, that you haven't been able to achieve them?
It basically it involves bottom line getting my kids to move out of the house.
Oh.
Which I mean, they're in their mid-20s, they're employed, but I've recently remarried, and my husband and I would like to live in the house together, and there's, I don't know, it's just awkward having 4 adults live in the same house, and truly it's time that they moved along. But as a mom, it's just like, oh, they, the pandemic, and they've, anyway. So,
well, thank you for sharing. That is,
kicking those baby birds out.
Travis, a personal goal that you have been meaning to achieve, but for some reason you think you haven't done it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a recent, I would say fairly recent, personal one that's been a struggle to achieve. And I would attribute that to clarity around it, and I'm happy to share with what it is. I've mentioned I was an athlete in the past, and before I moved into my business career, I never gave up my athletic passion, even though I'm not a competitive athlete. And for the last, in that sort of quest, when I turned 40, I decided that I would be a vegetarian for cholesterol and heart issues that ran in my family, that I was seeing a lot of. And recently, I started developing kidney stones as a result of the vegetarian diet. So I knew that I needed to make a dietary change. And it really turned on its head my entire belief system around having that type of lifestyle. And it's required a lot of mental adjustment, but also, 13 years ago, or to whatever it was when I started that, there wasn't this constant influx of opinion around health and wellness and diets and all these influencers and all these things and what's the best and what's the not. So I've had a real hard time achieving that goal of finding something that's going to replace that for me, that I feel is sustainable to adhere to, but also sustainable for my health goals. And just to give further to that happened because I lost both my parents young to heart disease and high cholesterol issues around heart disease. So I really had to, made that shift like prophylactically. So now that's sort of, I think I know enough about the topics that I need to believe it myself and just go for it. But I constantly let these doubts creep in.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing so candidly about your journey. First of all, I really want to take this opportunity to talk about something that I have noticed in people that I've coached and people in my family. So I think we all tend to underestimate stresses that we carry with ourselves for long periods of time. And we think the heart is failing and we think the body's failing. But if you're carrying weight that does not belong with you, stress, now there are tons and tons of research. Stress is a massive precursor to so many diseases. And we try to look for solutions in different things. Those are important. I'm not discrediting them. Those are important. But what gets overlooked is that we may be carrying trauma. We may be carrying a stress for the last 10, 15 years that we haven't resolved. That needs to go as well. If we aren't happy, if the body's not happy, if the nervous system has a stress because of some trauma, you know what happens when anything has a stress for a long period of time? It's going to reach a point where it's going to fracture. So if, there's so many, I was studying a little bit of public health in University of Lethbridge, and there was this very exciting discovery. So they studied different communities, and the communities with the highest longevity were the communities that were closer together and the people were happier. They built community relationships. They were not the ones that had the best quality of food. They were not the ones that had the best atmosphere. They were the ones that were together in the community. They beat other communities who had higher quality of food, better access to the environment, better climate around them. They were the communities with better relationships. And when you are close in relationships with people, you talk, you let go of a lot of things, you share, and you start to feel lighter and happier. So being happy is a necessity in having a healthy, long life. If you think about it like that, you can give somebody the best things in the world, organic food, great environment, go for a walk. If they're depressed, they're collapsing already, and I say that because my parents, I wish they have the best life. My parents gave me a very good life. I traveled around the world. I went to Turkey to do engineering. Then I came to Calgary. I did a few courses here. Then I went to SAIT, did post-secondary. I traveled around Europe and everything. When I came back to Calgary, I became anxious. And no matter what I had, it didn't make me feel okay. And, I was sharing earlier that I used to be so anxious. It almost felt like my brain just turned on in the morning and I don't know how to shut it off. And I wouldn't be able to perform at work. And I was 23 years old, and I remember going to work and I became so embarrassed that I wasn't able to perform. And I was shaky, because if I tell my employer, hey, I don't feel okay, he's going to say that's okay for one time, 2 times. But if it's a recurring thing, then he's going to go like, Sarah, we need the job done. Maybe bye. we'll hire somebody else. So I felt ashamed telling him, but I was like, his name was Ruth. I was like, Ruth, can I really need to go to emergency. He's like, why? And I was like, I just don't, I feel like something is going to happen. Something wrong is going to happen to me. He's like, are you okay? I was like, I don't know. And I was so anxious and shaking. And that's when I went to emergency, and they tell me that, okay, you just have anxiety, really bad anxiety. And you haven't had the pills or you haven't had any medication to control it. And then I get prescribed. And I calm down when I'm in the emergency, I'm okay. And then I get, the doctor sees me and everything, I get prescribed, and they say something which did not feel okay. And they said, here you go. And I was like, when can I get off of them? They're like, well, there's no timeline. You'll have to take it for as long as you feel anxious. And I was like, I'm 23 years old. I did some of the toughest things, graduated from engineering. You know how much they grill you in engineering? You really have to have a sound mind and stay focused and dedicated to get through that. And to me, at such a young age, if they're telling me that I'm dependent on some medication to control my mind, it just didn't feel right. And that is when I started to look for alternatives. I was like, they should have told me something more holistic rather than just giving me medications. But yeah, so Travis, that's, I hope this gives you some insight into things. We will be talking more about it. I would love to just go back now and continue with the presentation. Thank you all for sharing your stories. Okay. So I want to talk about our subconscious mind. The interesting thing is that whenever somebody says, I wanted to make a change, but I couldn't make a change, or I've been wanting to become focused, I've been wanting to become very efficient and perform well, they don't understand, or they might not be aware of, that there is a programming in our mind. And it is the subconscious mind. The reason it's called subconscious is because we're not always aware of it. It is something that we do involuntarily. 95% of our decisions throughout the day are reliant on our subconscious mind. If the subconscious mind is programmed to be a certain way, then we would operate in a certain way. So if my subconscious mind is that I am an athlete, I'm a reader, I'm kind, I work well, I don't get distracted, I've programmed myself that way, then during work, if I see a call from my sister, I'm not going to be prompted to take the call because I'm thinking I am dedicated to my work. So I'll ignore it, keep it for later when I'm free. What I'm trying to say is that our programming is what allows us to behave a certain way. And if we haven't changed that programming as we evolve, as we move into different phases in our life, it could be that the old programming doesn't serve us and it's causing us now trouble. And that is where a lot of the problem happens. With evolution in life, with changing phases in life, we need to have a different subconscious mind programming. Otherwise, we will keep creating the same result, which does not belong in this new phase of life. So there are 3 states of being. And the first state is your comfort zone. I'm referring to number 2 first. The comfort zone. This is when you have not made any changes. You're comfortable the way you are. Things have been repeating, have been going on for a long period of time in this zone. You haven't experienced discomfort. The problem with this zone, the no change zone, number 2, is that we are not meant for comfort zone. The reason is everything is always changing. So if you do not adapt to the changes, if you don't change what's within you with the changes as you go in life, you're going to slowly fall to zone number 1, the destructive zone. And I know this is, this is like an extreme term, destruction, but the compounded effect of not adapting to the changes in life will lead to something which is unfavorable. So if somebody, for example, has now turned 40 years old, their body has changed, they have changed, but they keep the same habits of eating junk food, of doing things which are unhealthy, or thinking that their body is going to take as they have the junk food, or their body is going to not get affected the way it used to get the way it used to when they were 20 years old. That is going to then lead to some problem over time, the compounded effect of having old programming, which doesn't serve you. What I want to aim today is the progressive zone. The progressive zone is when you understand that you have entered a new phase in life. Now you have new desires. Now you have new goals, like Jake was saying, things that you didn't think you would need. And now you need to have a different programming as well to adapt to this new life. And if you don't change your programming, guess what you're going to result? You're going to result this phase again, the no change zone. Nothing is going to change if nothing changes in your mind. So with progressing in life, it's important to understand that we also need to change and evolve. If we do not change and evolve, we will keep creating the life that we had before, and the growth is going to stop. So progression. We all love to progress, don't we? Progression is when you are in a little bit of discomfort, but this is good discomfort. Why? Because your desire to change your situation is more than the pain of growth. Growing pains, is something that happens when you're trying to make a change. But when you're in the progressive zone, your desire to change is more than the growth pain, and that's the discomfort you're experiencing. So you will still, despite of the challenges, you're going to make the necessary changes and you will thrive in the progression zone. Let's talk about the destruction zone, because I have fallen into it. Everybody once in a while falls into it. The destruction zone is when you are not adapting to the changes, when your desire to change is less than the pain of growth. You look at the growth, you think, oh my God, it's so challenging. This is so painful for me. And it is much more than your desire to change. So you don't change. And the compounded effect of no change results into something that you don't want to experience. An example for me was that I think it was really important for me to stay active during the pandemic because now I was only at home. And I didn't change that with the changing environment. I had to now do something else to stay active. And I ended up gaining like 15 pounds. And that didn't feel good. None of my clothes fit me. This is a milder example because 15 pounds is something I can lose and I've lost like half of them. But this is what happens in the destructive zone. When you do not change and adapt to the new environment and you keep the old programming, which does not belong in the new environment, you are going into the phase where your desire to change is lower than the growth pain. And that's how you keep experiencing a discomfort. I want to change, I want to change, I want to change. I want this to happen, I want that to happen. But you know what? It's too challenging to change. So you stay in that destructive zone. So I want to talk about the risk of the growth zone, the no change zone. As I mentioned, it is not something that we can stay in for a long period of time because we change and everything changes. It's just part of a human being's lifespan. Change is constant. And if we do not change, then we fall back into the destructive zone. So here's a question. Have you ever wondered what should go into your new phase of life? Other than your mind changing, what else needs to go in your new phase of life? If you have memories that do not belong in your new phase of life, they need to go. If you have trauma and relationships that do not belong in a new phase of life, they need to go as well. And this is all tough stuff, right? Because how do we get rid of trauma? How do we get rid of memories? Because it's just in my mind, and how do I get rid of it? And that's when transcendental meditation comes in. It really plays a role of a medication. But anyway, so what I'm trying to emphasize here is that as we go through life, every new phase of our life requires a new us. And if we do not let go of older thoughts, mindsets, perspectives, trauma, memories, relationships which do not serve us, we are carrying dead weight and it's going to bog us down. So a lot of changes need to happen as we go, and we don't realize that. We carry a lot from the past which doesn't serve us. And it's just going to keep us in the comfort zone. And obviously from the comfort zone, we'll go into the destructive zone because now we have things from the past into our new reality and they don't belong there. Anybody has any questions? Nope. Okay. So having said that, let me see. Okay, having said that, I want to take now a different approach to explaining our subconscious mind. So I talked to you about the subconscious mind as a part of ourselves, which has a programming. And we perform and operate throughout the day reliant on that programming. Another aspect of the subconscious mind is that it connects us to the unified field. Raise your hand if you know about the unified field. Okay, so we all are in a world of energy. This world is all energy. Anybody technical here? Anybody who loves physics? Raise your hand. Okay, I love physics, you guys. Okay, so everything is energy. Even sound is energy. Everything is energy. And let me come to this. In nature, you know, everything is energy, and energy moves in waves. Even particles move in waves. And if this is too foreign to you, I'm going to simplify it for you. Let's just say that a characteristic of energy is frequency. You know, when an earthquake hits, this is a photo of an earthquake. You see how the piece of land cracked? Have you wondered why it cracked during an earthquake? What has happened? If you know, raise your hand. Okay, what has happened is that when an earthquake happens, the tectonic plates are moving. There are tectonic plates in the earth, they're always moving. When they collide like that, a stress is produced because they are now experiencing friction, and waves are emitted from that. Everything that moves in harmony with that wave gets destroyed during an earthquake. So if you ever hear people who go like, you know, certain buildings are prone to, or like certain buildings are prone to falling during an earthquake, that is because they don't have any shock absorbers. And when the wave of the earthquake comes, it moves the building with it. But if the building had a shock absorber, the wave would come and the building would absorb the wave, would not move with the wave, and it wouldn't then collapse. I'll give you an example of a tornado. When a tornado comes, tornado also has a frequency. Tornado's coming, it starts to move everything with it. Everything, whatever moves in harmony with the tornado gets destroyed. So things with the same frequency move in complete harmony with one another. When I'm talking about transcendental meditation, and the reason why it has helped people, and people use it for various reasons, but the reason why it has helped people to create realities that they want, to have a better focus in life, etc., is we are also operating from our own frequency. Every system in this world has a home frequency. Whether it's circuits, optical systems, sound systems, biological systems, even you and I have a home frequency. What I'm saying right now, my words have a frequency. They reach your mind, they generate neurons, electricity goes, and you're getting a message. How's that happening? What am I doing that you are able to think about things? My words are energy. It's reaching you and it's having an impact on your mind. So if you think, oh my God, really, is it energy? Because I don't see it. I don't see, you know, that is something like somebody asked me very early on when I was coaching them, they're like, but I don't see it, so I don't believe in this stuff. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting because this gives me an opportunity to really highlight something that's obvious. A human eye has the capacity of looking at things from 220 nanometer to 760 nanometer of wavelength. Anything outside of that, we cannot see. I put sunscreen every morning. I cannot see the UVB radiations. My eyes are not capable of capturing that. I cannot see gravity. It's a force of attraction that exists. We all are on this planet because of gravity. The entire universe in a systematic orbit because of gravity. I cannot see gravity. There's so many things we cannot see does not mean that it does not exist. We just have a limited spectrum that is visible to us through our human eye. But we have other senses, like feeling. We feel things. So when a loved one comes to you and they're saying words of affirmation, they're talking to you with love, you feel their love, right? If somebody says something mean to you, you feel the anger. That both of them are energy. One is a positive form of energy, one is a negative form of energy. What you say to yourself in your mind is energy as well. So if your subconscious mind is programmed in a way that you're not good enough, you cannot make this change. You cannot do things which are challenging. You cannot focus on work, come on, or you're getting old. This is one of the common things, how our internal dialogues are. We may not catch them, but we may be programmed into them. I'll give you an example. If you think that age makes you old, And you think, oh, I'm not going to do this because now I'm growing old. I cannot do this. It's not for me anymore. This is an indication of your programming that age brings restriction. You're not allowed to do many things. You go back to your belief. And if you want to make changes in life, despite your age, then you have to change that belief that it doesn't matter how old I am. As long as I put my mind into something, I can achieve it. That's the new programming. So in a nutshell, we have thoughts that are recurring in our mind. And those thoughts dictate how we operate, what we think. We may not always be able to catch that thought. We sometimes thoughts are camouflaged. For example, when I woke up this morning, I had a headache. I usually never get headaches, but I had a headache. Maybe it was the alarm. I don't know what it was. And I'm thinking to myself, why do I have a headache? And the right thing comes to me. The first thing comes to me is like, I have a workshop and then I have like 5 things outlined today. I don't think I can do those 5 things to the best of my capacity. That's the first thought that came to me, that I have 5 things outlined today and they all are major. I cannot do that. But here's the thing. This is how I look at myself, that I'm not efficient enough to do 5 things. This is something that's going on behind the scenes, which I cannot always catch. But when I saw that programming, I was like, hang on, it's a thought. It's a thought that I cannot do these 5 things efficiently. But here's another thought I'm going to reinforce. I am going to do those 5 things and I'll do it to the best of my potential and they'll be fine. And I reinforced that thought. And, the headache was gone. I ignored it. I don't feel it anymore. I'm okay right now. You kind of have to program yourself in a way that you're able to take up challenges that you want to take. If you have a recurring belief that is in you, it's going to keep you from moving forward in life. And it is important to address it. And so I want to give you certain tools that you can do to identify your beliefs. And that requires you to, first of all, be completely aware that your subconscious mind has a massive role. Your thoughts have a massive role on how you operate. Once you're aware of it, then now you can take the magnifying glass and look at your thoughts. What am I thinking about myself? What is my self-image? Am I somebody who's capable? Am I somebody who's not capable? Am I somebody who can easily learn and be focused? Or am I somebody who's distracted? Am I someone who is efficient, or am somebody who's not efficient, needs help? You're going to feel like, what? I'm not efficient. I've never been efficient all my life. Or I'm not somebody who has bravery. I've never been brave all my life. Others help me out. Change that, because you can be brave. You can be efficient. You can be whatever you want. You just have to instill a different programming in yourself to operate from that programming. You take 2 people. You give them, let's say they're clones. One has a positive mindset. One has a negative mindset. The trajectory of their lives are going to look different. The person with a positive mindset, the person with a self-belief, is going to operate differently than the person with a negative mindset and negative self-belief. So I hope what I have reiterated right now, the role of your subconscious mind, the programming you have, needs to be in alignment with the changes you want to make in life. First, your beliefs need to be in alignment with that. If you think about yourself in a way that doesn't serve you anymore, catch that. Bring in a new programming, bring in a new belief about yourself. Rather than I can't, introduce I can and I will, again and again, until you start believing in it. Okay, so I want to talk about the 3R method. The 3R method is refresh, reprogram, reinforce. This is something that I used when I wanted to lose tons of weight. When I was a child, I shared that in the beginning of my story. I lost like 23 kilos. But I remember when I had to lose that, because I was bullied, I used to think I cannot. It's so hard. How am I going to ever lose weight? I'm always going to be a chubby kid. And I was, in the premises of obesity when I was trying to lose weight. So the doctors were like, okay, nutritionist and all of that. And I was like, I need to have that faith in myself that I can lose weight. So what I used to do every single day is I used to tell myself, when there is a will, there is a way. This is me trying to reprogram myself. And I used to, so first of all, you need to understand that, you know, you have a programming which doesn't serve you. So let's talk about number one, refresh. So you have to understand, okay, this programming doesn't work for me. So how do I refresh myself and bring in a new programming? When you identify the new programming, then you go to step number two, reprogram. You bring in a new affirmation or you bring in a new belief system and you keep repeating it to yourself in a way that you feel excited about it. So for me, what really clicked to me was, when there is a will, there is a way. It's a quote. I don't know where I heard it, but it just got, I just felt like I can relate to it. So I would keep saying it to myself and I would keep reinforcing it throughout the day. So when I'm trying to lose weight, I obviously have to be active. I have to not eat junk food. I don't have to, you know, I have to leave out a lot of things and introduce new habits. It's hard because I love junk food, or at that time I used to love junk food and I would love chocolates and love chips and all of that, but I cannot have it because it's not helping me. It's deteriorating my health. So I would reinforce it. When there is a will, there is a way, Sarah. When there is a will, there is a way. Literally, it was my mantra. And then I stopped having, over time, I stopped having cravings for that junk food. I stopped having cravings for things which were not good for me. I started feeling happy that I have the opportunity to work out. Now, I want to, you know, I would love for one of you to volunteer. I think Travis, if I can have you, you mentioned that,
Sure.
You mentioned that you had certain, you have personal goals, but there are certain things that come in your way and you're not able to frame your mind in a way that you achieve them. Can you please talk a little bit about it?
In the example that I gave, I think the complication comes from the purpose of what I originally did and the consequence, right? So I feel like I'm stuck between this thing of, to be very plain about it, kidney stones, high cholesterol, and where am I going to find the mitigating approach? Mm-hmm. And I'm fearful of both. So by being fearful of both, I'm worried of making a bad decision.
Mm-hmm. And what is the dialogue in your mind that you can make a bad decision for yourself? Is this the dialogue?
The dialogue is,
or I don't know what is right for me.
Yeah, I think that's what the dialogue is. I would say, like, I'm not, I don't know what the best approach is for me.
Mm-hmm. And how does it sound if you start reinforcing a belief in yourself that I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out and I'll make the best decision for myself?
Sure, that's fair.
Like, it's okay if we don't know it, because anybody can be in that situation that they don't have sufficient information to make a sound decision. But if we keep telling ourselves, I don't know, there is no action we're giving ourselves to act on. But if we say that, I don't know yet, but I will figure it out and I'll choose what's right, what's best for me, it gives you authority. It gives you a little bit more confidence in yourself. And it gives you that belief that you will do it. No worries. So what if you don't know it? You'll figure it out and you'll do what's best for you. Just that change, just that adding those two lines makes you feel slightly different about yourself, right? You feel a little bit more like, yeah, I can do it, And then ideas are going to start coming to you. Maybe I should look here. Maybe I should look there, because now you have given yourself a responsibility that you're going to make the best choice for yourself. So you will do intellectually things that are favorable to that. Your brain will go like, oh, call this person, call that person, research here, research there. And you'll start, reinforcing this belief in you that it's okay, I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out and I'll choose what's best for me. It will keep reinforcing until you actually make it valid, until you actually figure it out what was right for you. And once you do that, that is something you can always go back to in the future. This slight change in belief changes the trajectory of how you experience things. And it is really powerful, and we don't really realize it until we sit with ourselves and we pretty much have to write down, what is my belief? Why am I stuck here in this area of life? Why do I feel like I cannot move forward? What am I thinking? Am I thinking I can't, or I don't know? Am I telling myself already that, it's not possible for me? If that's my belief, let me just add something else. I will. I may not know how, but I will do it. I may not know how to overcome this challenge, but I will overcome this challenge. I can overcome this challenge. It's no big deal. You have to almost back yourself up. Like a parent backs up their child, you almost have to parent yourself through changes. And because everybody in this group wants to make changes, I would highly encourage you to sit with yourself and listen to yourself, talking to yourself. Like, what are you saying to yourself? It could be one tiny thought like, I can't. This is not possible for me. Over time, it has reinforced. And what has it done? No change has happened. It has given you a reality that validates your belief. If you keep thinking, I can't, your brain is going to pick up a reality. That is how our brain operates. It's going to pick up a reality to reinforce that your belief is correct. I was doing this podcast episode and I was talking about beliefs, and I was reading something in I think it was a Harvard paper or something, but the example there was that our brain picks up cues to validate our beliefs. And a performer, for example, has a belief that they will do really, really well. They go up on stage, they're slightly nervous, slightly sweaty, their hands are wet, they're kind of shaky. Let's talk about somebody who thinks that they're going to do well. This is how they're going to think. It's okay, I'm sweaty, everybody gets sweaty. It's okay, I'm shaky, everybody gets shaky. I can still do it. I may not remember all the steps, but I remember most of my steps. They will pull off a performance with confidence and they'll still be doing well. What is the brain going to tell itself? See, you always do it. Despite the fact that you were shivering, you still did it. Now let's talk about somebody who has the belief that they can perform no matter what. They go up on the stage, they start shivering too. Stage fright gets to everybody, right? In some capacity, they start shivering too. Even though they're just as good as the other performer, they're telling themselves that they can't. This is how their brain works. It starts to pick up cues from the environment. You're shivering already. You can't. You're already shaking and you're sweaty. You can't. It will keep reinforcing till they give the performance, which is not good enough. And then the reality will validate their belief that, see, you cannot perform. And their friends will go like, hey, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it? Well, I cannot perform. I told you guys I cannot perform. This is literally what happens. Our brain is committed to our beliefs. So if you tell your brain you can, it's going to pick up cues and tell you, yeah, you can. If you tell your brain you can't, it's going to pick up cues and tell you you can't. Now, I would love to tie this in to transcendental meditations. When you're going into deeper levels of your mind, what is happening? We have two parts to our mind. One is the conscious part, one is the subconscious part. Remember, most of this workshop, I've been talking about the importance of your beliefs in your subconscious mind, because it is something that we don't always pay attention to. The reason subconscious is because a lot of the things we do involuntarily. We don't think before we act 95% of the time. We're on autopilot. So why is transcendental meditation effective in reprogramming your mind? Is because when you go into deeper levels of your mind, you are in a way silencing your conscious mind, and you're now accessing your subconscious mind directly. In that place, when you're accessing your subconscious mind, if you start repeating the mantra, I'm capable, I'm brave, I can take up any challenging situation, I trust myself, I'm much more efficient than I believe myself to be. If you start now that you have silenced your conscious mind and you have direct access to your subconscious mind, any suggestion you give to yourself, it's going to start embedding. So people who go into meditation with an intention that, I'm going into meditation to, for example, find a solution to this problem. Or I'm going into meditation because I'm so nervous before meeting this person or before I'm going to a meeting or something. I'm just going to go into meditation. This is what I would suggest. It is powerful that you go into meditation. You come into a place of calm. You come into complete alignment with yourself. You have slowed down your breathing. You have brought your nervous system to a neutral place. You're no more in fight or flight mode. You're in a neutral place. You've calmed yourself down and you start accessing the deeper levels of your mind. And I'll teach you how to do that. It's a step-by-step process and I'll teach you everything. For now, to summarize exactly how you can imprint new beliefs in your subconscious mind, I'll skip that part as to the step-by-step part. But when you go into the deeper levels of your mind and you give yourself a suggestion, and suggestion could be that I'm capable of doing anything I put my mind to. Powerful suggestion, right? You trust yourself. You're capable of anything you put your mind to. You start embedding this belief in your subconscious mind, and you start staying with that belief for some time. As you come out of your meditation, you're going to start feeling a shift with yourself. While our mind is really, really powerful. When I was talking to Travis, we changed the belief slightly, and there is a massive difference in how he feels just with that line. So your mind, when you start to tell it a different story, when you start to give it a different self-image, will believe you, and it's going to work in making that a reality. So as you come out of your transcendental meditation, you have already started the process of reprogramming yourself. Now with repetition and reinforcement, it's going to be a belief within you forever, for as long as you want it to be. The key is this: you reprogram and then you reinforce. So you go into the transcendental meditation, you start to reprogram yourself in a way that is favorable to you. That is how you would like to operate. After you come out of that transcendental meditation, the reprogramming has already started. You're going to feel slightly different. You'll think to yourself, now that I believe I can do whatever I put my mind to, okay, I can actually go for a run. I haven't gone for a run in a very long time. Let me go outside for a run. So what if it's cold? Start reinforcing that in yourself. That yes, I can do whatever I put my mind to, literally until you start to believe it as a fact. And the beauty of transcendental meditation is that when you go into the deeper levels of the mind and your conscious mind is quiet, you don't have any triggering thoughts. Your logic doesn't come in to fight with you. You don't have any disturbance. At that time, when you make a suggestion to yourself, your mind is going to catch it like that. Sorry. Your mind is going to catch it. And now, another part about the transcendental meditation. If you remember, I mentioned that your nervous system calms down. A lot of people don't realize how important this is. And I really want to highlight and underscore the importance of having a calm nervous system. Our nervous system is what regulates us all the time. We can be frantic at fight or flight mode if our nervous system is at a frantic or fight or flight mode. If our nervous system is calm and neutral, we'll be calm and neutral. We have the brain and it has something over here. So these are the logical cognitive part of the brain, let's say. And this is the part which is not logical or cognitive. So what happens is that if we do not calm ourselves down, we are not coming to the part of the brain that is logical and cognitive, and we are operating from this part. This part of the brain is which reacts to the stresses. So, for example, you start your day, a call comes from your colleague, something massive has come on your plate now, you have to do it. And you don't have time, you have so much happening in your day, and you're thinking, how am I supposed to do it? If you are somebody who has anxiety like I did, or who is prone to overthinking at that moment and panicking, remember, you're not using or accessing the cognitive part of your brain at that moment. You're directly using the fight or flight mode of your body, the one that panics. And the response of it is something like this: writing an email back to your colleague, hey, frantic response, I have a lot on my plate. When would you like me to do it? And your conversation with yourself is also, oh my God, there's so much on my plate. This is not something that may serve you in a long duration of time. This is something that a lot of people have problems with, and we all are prone to acting this way, being frantic when we're introduced with a trigger or a stimuli in our environment. So transcendental meditations are massively useful because as you start to meditate, you start to bring your nervous system in a place where it's calm. You no longer start to get triggered easily, and use this part. Your cognitive abilities are very sharp. A trigger comes to you, but your response is different. Now you're thinking logically in a calm manner. You might get a lot of solutions at that point because you're able to think about it. However, prior to this, when you didn't give yourself the opportunity to think about it, you are probably going to act from a place of being frantic, scared, fearful of what's going to happen. Obviously, that doesn't serve anybody. So, yeah, your nervous system and transcendental meditation. As you start to meditate, you start to control your nervous system. You start to bring yourself in a place that you're able to operate from in a peaceful and more constructive manner. I would love to pause over here and ask if you have any questions. Nope. Okay, it's 1 p.m. Time passed really, really fast. But yeah, please just, sorry, have it. Okay. So yeah, please let me know if you have any thoughts, if you have any questions. I would love to answer. I can, let's have just a couple of minutes to answer any questions or take any thoughts in. No?
So no, I just, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to the next steps and learning more.
Yeah.
I agree with Pam and Travis. Very excited.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Thank you so much. So the next steps are going to be all about how to control yourselves and how to operate in the transcendental meditation state. Our brain behaves differently. The waves in our brain are different. We behave differently. There is a whole technique that you use to get into the state of in the meditative state, in the state of yourself where your mind goes into deeper levels. And it is very powerful and very exciting. And I will also love to talk about the unified field and how energy plays a role and how we start attracting great things in life. And, I know when I use the word attracting great things, when I first heard it, it seemed like dreams and hopes, living in a land of dreams and hopes. What do you mean you're attracting great things? There is science to that. It's really powerful. So I'm very excited to dive deep into that as well. Thank you so much for your time today, everybody.